going down. H-Town, Hiram Clark, B. Scott.
B. Scott from Hiram Clark.
It is the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. And is anybody shocked? Anybody shocked? Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl for a rematch of the Super Bowl from 2 years ago. I think a lot of people would agree that the Eagles and the Chiefs are certainly right there, got to be right there with the top two teams, if not the best two teams. There were others in contention for this. Of course, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the Detroit Lions. There were a few other teams that were in the conversation for the best teams in the NFL, but nobody is shocked to see the Eagles and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl for a rematch. And I think the cool thing about how the games played out on Sunday is that they really, for the most part, illustrate exactly how these teams go about winning, right? The fact that the Eagles were able to go out there and score 55 points. I don't think anybody predicted that. Thought they were going to go out there and score 55 points and beat the brakes off of the Commanders. But the fact that that's what they did, and then on the other side, you had the Chiefs winning another close game, and they got the record now for the most consecutive close games, like the streak for winning the most consecutive close games. Like, this is exactly how these two teams are built. Like, I think the Eagles have the best roster in the NFL for my money, like top to bottom. Say what you want to say about Jalen Hurts, and we'll get to that in a second. But from top to bottom, the Eagles had the best roster in the NFL, and they go out there and they play exactly like that. Like, they're going to be the best team on the field every time, every time. And I think point differential, if you look at it, I want to say they had a higher point differential than anybody in the AFC, and was right there with the Detroit Lions this year. Like, they scored, they did that. And then the Chiefs, again, built to win close games. Styles make fights. We talk about that all of the time. You got one team that's built to beat the brakes off of you and another team that is built to win close games. What is that going to look like in this Super Bowl? Like, I think this is very different from 2 years ago, just in terms of the strength of the two teams and how they're built. I think the Chiefs are a lot different than what they were a couple of years ago. So this is going to be a really, really, really interesting matchup. And so let's go through it. Let's go through it. Okay. The early storylines that we're talking about going into the Super Bowl. The Chiefs with a chance for a three-peat. They are already, I think this is actually worth noting and an accomplishment in and of itself, even if they lose this game. But they are already the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls and even make it back to the Super Bowl. Right. So in some regards, this is already the most accomplished team or the most accomplished era that we've ever seen, or this 3-year stretch, if you want to just isolate it to this 3 or 4 to 5 year stretch from when they've won these Super Bowls or been at the, been in the AFC Championship game going to the Super Bowl. It is probably, I would say, by that measure, the most successful era that you've seen. So from that standpoint, it is historic. And I look, I'm gonna be honest, man. I got a tough time hating on what the Chiefs got going on from a historical standpoint. When it's not the Texans going up against the Chiefs, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna say that they don't annoy me sometimes, and that I'm not gonna pretend like I'm over here rooting for the Chiefs. But it is pretty cool to be like in the midst of this sort of history making. Like, and maybe I'm corny for romanticizing the historical aspect of it. But you're talking about a team having a chance to win back to back to back Super Bowls, and you've never seen or heard of anybody doing anything like that. And you also have that feel, like, say what you want about how the refs treat the Chiefs, or however you feel about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, whatever it is. Like, the the fact that when you watch them, you can tell that you're watching something different. Mahomes and Kelsey, the most dynamic playoff duo that has ever existed. Like, the defenses over the last couple of years, the Chiefs defenses that they've put out there over the last couple of years have been as good as any that you can probably put out there. like from like overall from top to bottom. Like I think that between that and just the overall weight of it all, it is hard for me to kind of like try to take any shine off of what is obviously a great moment. So I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm still gonna be rooting for Jalen Hurts, Channel Views on Jalen Hurts and the Eagles in this Super Bowl. Not gonna pretend like I'm actually rooting for the three-peat, but I can't pretend like it's not cool, right? And I want to point out like Patrick Mahomes in this game against, in this game against Buffalo was a lot better than he was against the Texans. I think that the Texans have a better defense than Buffalo has, and that has a little bit to do with it. But he played like a Super Bowl game managing quarterback, and that's kind of the cool part about all of this. Like as great as he is and has been and has these moments, it is about how he sort of has been able to manage the game, allow the defense to do what it does, and then there's magic. Like he's got the ability to make some magic and make some things happen. Him and Travis Kelsey, and in this case, Kelsey was big in the Texans game, but in this case, he was able to get some other guys involved as well. The wide receivers involved as well in this game, and yeah, man, the Chiefs are on the verge of doing something that a lot of the haters are not going to feel very good about. But and look, this game I think is gonna set up for the Super Bowl storyline of how they're officiated, how the Chiefs are officiated. This game did not do anything, and I'm not taking anything away from the Chiefs. I'm not the one to do that. But some of the calls and how this game went and some of the moments, and you pair it up with what happened with the Texans game, it is not going away. The talk about the officiating is not going away. I mean, that Xavier Worthy catch that was not how that happened. Talk about that not going away. The big one, of course, is the Josh Allen tush push quarterback sneak that it looked like he clearly made it over, and somehow that did not get called a first down, and that really changed the game. I mean, that absolutely changed the game, swung the game, and of course, the rest is history. And like if I'm a Bills fan, we talk about some tough breaks for the Bills. Like they go for it on those fourth downs, don't get it. Um, they or I should say, I'm talking about the 2 point. They go for those on those 2 point conversions, don't get it. Aggressive on fourth downs, don't get it. Like and even in the midst of all of that, like you're right there, you lose by 3, and you're thinking about like, hey man, I'm just a couple of maybe an extra point or two here and a play swing there from actually being in the Super Bowl. It's not like the gap is that large, and that's the tough part about the Chiefs and this last couple of years of how they're built to win close games. Like they got the mystique of being the Chiefs behind them, but really all they're really doing is just kind of wearing you out and sticking around and then delivering that knockout punch at the end, or in some cases waiting on you to beat yourself. Waiting on you to beat yourself. And that's, I guess that's really the thing, the value about the Chiefs, right? Is that they and I know a lot of people with the officiating, they go point to that and say it's the refs that's in their favor and that's in their corner, and that's how they're able to do this. But man, they don't beat themselves. That's why they're a team that is able to go down and have a chance to win back to back to back Super Bowls, because they do not beat themselves, and they allow you wait for you to do it. Man, I look, I cannot wait until the football team in Houston is one like that, because I think it can be. It has an opportunity to be. It has people in the building that are that are perfect to build around, to try to build that type of environment. But man, you look at the teams that are there right now, the Chiefs, the Eagles, teams that don't beat themselves and wait for you to do so. Or really in the Eagles case, just a stacked and loaded team. Big takeaway from the NFC Championship game was the appreciation for Saquon Barkley. Can we just take a moment, because a lot of the conversation, all of the conversation is on quarterbacks. You had Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes on one side. You had the boy wonder, Jayden Daniels, and of course Jalen Hurts on the other side. And I think Jalen Hurts is I would say fairly criticized and scrutinized quarterback, but also not appreciated enough quarterback, right? Like somehow um rightfully scrutinized, but also underrated in a lot of ways, or underappreciated in a lot of ways, because it doesn't look, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm guilty of this as well, because it doesn't look exactly the way that you think it should look. But before we even get to that, can we just appreciate this Saquon Barkley moment real quick and what we're watching, especially in such a quarterback focused era, that we get to watch a running back like Saquon Barkley go out there and be clearly the best football player in the NFL, clearly the best player in the league, clearly. And the reason why this game was over very early on was because it was clear that Washington was going to have some kind of turnover problem, and you're not going to be able to do that and beat Philadelphia. And it was clear that they also were not going to have an answer for Saquon Barkley. And to be fair, who does, or who has this year? Nobody has. And what we're watching from Saquon Barkley is, I think, it is easily one of the better running back seasons that we've ever seen, certainly in our lifetime, but I think of all time. And it is the beginning of Saquon Barkley becoming a more, like, just clearly and obviously more relevant player. Like the trajectory of Saquon Barkley's career, like the difference between him being just a nice player, a player that everybody like remembered as being really, really good, but how relevant was he because he played on teams that didn't win or weren't in relevant conversations, to going to the Eagles. And in his first season there, he is the best player in the league, and inarguably is a leader to their Super Bowl run. Like it just totally, this season has totally changed the conversation about Saquon Barkley, not just as an individual talent, but as an individual figure, like where he'll go and where he'll be in the pantheon of running backs. Like the whole concept of that has opened up in a different way that just did not exist when he was with the Giants, and could not exist when he was with the Giants. Certainly not if they were going to operate the way that they've been operating. So I had to point that out, man, because obviously the first play from said go, Saquon Barkley gets it and takes it 60 yards so for a touchdown, and it feels like the rest is history. My pick of the Washington Commanders pulling the upset. Now, I'm not really sure where my head was at in going into these picks. I'm gonna be honest, man. If I was just rooting for chaos or what it was, but logic would have dictated that exactly what happened on Sunday was going to happen the way it happened. Saquon Barkley went out there and proved why exactly why he was worth every penny that the Giants did not want to pay him, and honestly why any team that was serious about winning this offseason should have been willing to give him really whatever a contract or a running back could actually get. Like that's the thing. And I think I was making this point during the offseason, that Saquon Barkley at his best is worth more than anything that you could reasonably pay a running back. What is he getting? $12 million a year or something like that? He's better than that. So you pay him that. It was very, very simple. I don't understand what was complicated about it for the Giants, and I don't understand what would have been complicated about it for any other team that was interested in a running back this offseason. But he landed in the right place. I'm appreciating this moment. I'm glad that we're going to get to watch it. Hey, there's something how about that? We got 15 minutes into this and didn't point out the main difference. One of the main differences between these two Super Bowls, the Eagles Chiefs rematch. Okay. Saquon Barkley's in this one. Saquon Barkley is in this one. The best player in the league. The last time, and this is with all due respect to Patrick Mahomes, but the last time that they played in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs had the best player out of the two teams in Patrick Mahomes. Saquon Barkley, as good as he has been that damn good this year, I wonder what's going to tip the scales. The Eagles team that is built to blow you out, or is it going to be the Chiefs team that's built to win close games? Should be fascinating. I do want to say again, though, no more Jalen Hurts slander. That was another takeaway. No more Jalen Hurts slander. He was fantastic in this game. And he seems to just be really good in big moments. Like we're talking about this Super Bowl rematch. The last time they did this, he was really good in defeat. And and he was good at the things that I think a lot of us criticize him for. The accuracy, the timing, getting rid of the ball. And then on top of that, doing the things that we all know that he does well, athletically and, for the most part, decision-making wise, and the physicality and just the toughness and all of the sort of the intangibles that go with it. Like he had that on top of doing the stuff well that a lot of people knock him for. So this was not a good day, not a good night for the anti-Jalen Hurts crowd. No more Jalen Hurts slander. I feel like we should be at that point now. If you are the quarterback, even if it's the best team in the league and the team is loaded, and I think we can all acknowledge that Jalen Hurts benefits from the infrastructure, that he benefits from how the teams have been built around him. I think there's no denying that. But if you quarterback the team that go to the Super Bowl 2 out of 3 years, playing at the level that he played in that Super Bowl and that he played in this NFC Championship game to get them to the Super Bowl, I feel like the slander has to cease. I feel like you got to stop with the slander at that point. Like I think at this point we know what Jalen Hurts is. He is an imperfect pocket player or imperfect pocket quarterback who can operate out of the pocket or within the pocket, but also does a lot of his best work just with the ball in his hands, running the ball. But you saw it when the connection is there with AJ Brown, and it was in this game. You saw it. You saw what he's able to do, what he's capable of. Man, you lead your team to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. The slander has to cease. I'm rooting for Jalen Hurts in this game because, the Channel View connection and, the black quarterback. That part. Speaking of, Jayden Daniels, I think is the final takeaway from this weekend because honestly, man, look, I know they lost the game. I know he talked about it being disappointing, but really now that he's out, you can talk about it in past tense about how he changed the whole outlook, and he is changing the whole outlook for quarterbacks in the NFC. I think there was a question about that, and shout out to Jalen Hurts as well because I think he with the no more slander part. I think he is doing the same thing. When you talk about who are the young quarterbacks in the NFC going into this year, there was some question about that. I think a lot of people felt good about Jordan Love, and maybe he took a little bit of a knock, but I think you still have to feel pretty good about his future. You're talking about Jayden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, and Jared Goff just turned 30, but those are the quarterbacks in the NFC. Of course, Matthew Stafford I put in a different category because he's an elder statesman. But those are the ones, that is the future of the NFC. Jalen Hurts, I think, has reestablished himself after last year, and then even part of this year, there being all of these questions about him. No more Jalen Hurts slander, but then also Jayden Daniels coming through as a not emerging star, but establishing himself. Like if CJ Stroud can go into year two the way he did, feeling like he was already a star and being treated in a lot of ways like he was already a star, Jayden Daniels is certainly going to do that. Certainly going to do that. So you got Jayden Daniels, you got Jalen Hurts, you got Jordan Love, you got Jared Goff, and you roll. We see what else. We see what else is happening. Caleb? How about Caleb Williams partnering up with Ben Johnson? What's that gonna look like? I'm really intrigued by that. Is Ben Johnson about to have Caleb Williams looking like Jared Goff, but with Caleb Williams' ability? And what does that even mean? What does that even look like? And it's way too early. The Bears don't get the benefit of the doubt, even if they draft Caleb Williams, even if they hire Ben Johnson. But like, dare we say that the Bears might have got their shit together? So I would say put a pin in that one. I mentioned Jayden Daniels, mentioned Jalen Hurts, mentioned Jordan Love, Jared Goff, but put a pin in that Caleb Williams thing and see how that's going to work out with Ben Johnson, because I'm very much intrigued by that. Overall, man, I'm excited about this, man. Like, we saw it, like there was one game that was competitive and one game that wasn't. The first one wasn't. I was expecting it to be more competitive, but this is how the Eagles are built. They are built to bum rush you, to blow you out. And then of course the Chiefs built to win close games, seem to always get a favorable whistle. Man, look. Okay, let's just be real before we get out of here, man. How that fourth down, that Josh Allen fourth down, was not called a first down, I will not understand. We didn't get no measurement. We didn't really get no real justification and understanding for what they saw and how it is that they saw something different from what everybody else seemed to see. Like, that was as bad as it gets. As bad as it gets. And I know some of the Texans players have gotten fined for criticizing the officiating from the divisional game. But and that, look, we've already talked about how bad some of those calls were. But this one is the worst. This one is the worst. And that Xavier Worthy catch, that wasn't terrible. Awful. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. And I don't buy into the conspiracy. You're not gonna hear me talking about how it's fixed and rigged for the Chiefs and all of that kind of stuff. But they ain't doing themselves no favors. I can tell you that. They're not doing themselves no favors at all with that type of stuff. Got to get that together. Got to clean that up, man. Because again, going into the Super Bowl, this gonna still be a storyline because you had more officiating controversy, and you got 2 weeks to drum it up too. And by the way, I should mention here, I will be in New Orleans for Radio Row with the Sports Radio 610 crew for a second straight year. Very excited to do that. Last year was my first year with the Radio Row experience. Did that in Vegas. I had a really good time with the crew. So I'm looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that. Good time. Got it set up already. Got a pretty good idea for how everything is gonna go. So I'm excited about that, man. Y'all stay tuned for that, man. I guess that means I hadn't even thought about what that might mean for B Block content, man. I really was just thinking about the stuff that we're going to be doing in Sports Radio 610. But since I'm picking this bad boy back up, this means that we'll have pods potentially. I think, yeah, we'll have pods from New Orleans. I got to figure all of this part of it out, actually. How will the podding from New Orleans work exactly? Am I going to take this mic with me? Look, I have to figure this part of it offline. But I say all of that to say, look forward to some pre-Super Bowl content in the coming weeks, as your boy will be on Radio Row in New Orleans on the scene, checking it all out with Sports Radio 610. But yeah, man, this has been the B Block Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, tell your people about it. And you can also, if you're just listening to the audio version of this one, I would say that you should check us out also on the B Block Podcast YouTube page. Subscribe and check us out over there as well. Until next time, y'all be good.